G'day everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this watercolour demonstration, I'm going to paint two cute little quokkas to turn into Aussie Christmas cards. If you don't know what a quokka is, don't worry, I'll describe them in just a moment. I'm using my A4 Etcher cold press watercolour journal and Art Spectrum watercolours. Both of these photos are by Cruisy Susie from Instagram. Go check out her account for more quokka cuteness. I've linked her in the description below. Originally, quokkas were mistaken for large rats by early Dutch explorers, hence the name Rottnest Island, where a large population of them live. Quokkas, or short-tailed scrub wallabies, are in fact small marsupials about knee-high. These macropods are herbivorous, mainly nocturnal, and they can climb trees. I will describe what colours I'm using as I'm painting, but here you can see that they are mostly browns, mixed from a yellow ochre, Australian red gold or Pilbara red with a bit of ultramarine blue. For the background I use Australian grey, both the greens in the set, Tasman blue and Australian turquoise. These colours are from the landscape set and you can see my previous videos where I prepare this palette and test them out on some Australian landscapes. Let's get on to the painting. I start by using a clean wet brush on the Quokka Joey, then add a dilute mix of Australian grey and yellow ochre for the lightest colours in the quokka. I'm not worried about going outside the circle here because I will crop the image in the final design. Around the snout and cheeks, as well as the chest, I use a tissue to dab and lift the paint and create lighter patches there. While it's still wet, I drop in a mix of yellow ochre and Pilbara red that's made a darker orange for around the inner ears and face. Adding a touch of ultramarine blue to this mix makes a darker brown that I drop in around the top of the snout, making sure to leave a bit of white underneath. And then I also do the paws and back and a tiny bit inside the ears. With a clean damp brush, I blur the edge below the paws and belly to make a soft transition. For the second quokka on the beach, I start by pre-wetting the background sand and the quokka before adding Australian grey. Then I add in some darker spots that will soften and diffuse in the sand because the paper's wet, as well as some shadows where the bushes will be behind the quokka. I put some Australian red gold in the quokka, but probably should have waited for it to be dry first, since I later had to stop it from bleeding into the sand. Then with some more Pilbara red, I touch the top of the ears and the head, and I make a dark brown by adding some ultramarine blue to that mix, just like with the first quokka, and then put this on the chest and head. With a more pigmented dark brown than that first dilute layer, and using a smaller brush, I darken the ears and back and start defining the chest and paws. Quokkas seem to have a permanent smile on their faces and have become popular on social media after starring in some celebrity selfies, such as with Chris Hemsworth and Roger Federer. Then I fill in the face and front of the body with a lighter tan colour using strokes that resemble fur and making sure they follow the direction of growth. I also darken the nose and blur it out with a clean damp brush. It's been many years since I've visited Rottnest Island, where most people go to see quokkas. Do you want to see a nature journaling with me video where I go to the island and find some quokkas? Then let me know in the comments. I just keep adding layers of brown in varying shades to give depth to the fur. With a fine size 0 brush, tiny details in the fur can be made. I also darken the eyes and lift out the centre to give them a little bit of depth, but will put in highlights with a gel pen at the end. Now, quokkas can be found on the mainland as well, but they are restricted to the southwest region of Western Australia, and populations have decreased to the extent that they're now listed as vulnerable. This is due to predators such as dingoes and foxes, as well as human impact in the form of land clearing. Moving on to the sky and ocean for the background, I carefully go around the quokka's head with some water before dropping in some Tasman blue, leaving gaps for clouds. For the ocean, I switch to Australian turquoise, and I lift some pigment at the horizon. While the paper's still wet, I drop in some more pigment into the sky, and with a damp brush blur it in, then adjust again and add a little bit more, until I'm happy. I also add another layer to darken the ocean. After it's mostly dry, but still a little bit damp, I add in the bush behind the quokka using Australian leaf green dark, and dab off the edges with a tissue so they're a little bit lighter than the centre. I prepare a medium brown mix to fill in the quokka's base coat, then lift off some paint from the tummy, under the chin and on the shoulder with my damp brush. With a darker shade of brown, made by adding more ultramarine blue to the medium brown, I fill in the shadow at the quokka's feet, the tail, paws and nose. I do the background shrubbery, but probably should have started with some light colours and then added the shapes on top because I lose a lot of detail by going over it again. I'm using a Sumi E brush here and the Australian leaf green dark and Australian green gold. For the sky, I'm using Tasman blue again and lifting some areas with a tissue to give the impression of clouds. With a smaller brush, I add details to the stalk next to the quokka and those grass details that I lost before. I finally start adding some darks to the quokka, blending edges with a clean damp brush. I also add the dark feet in, taking care to keep their toe shape as true to the pencil drawing as possible. Next, I move on to the details in the face with the nose, mouth, and then fur before finishing off the body. I go back to do the eyes once the face is dry and add tiny details using my smallest brush on the tips of the ears and the head. I continue adding fur details using this brush around the body. I add a shadow layer to the ocean to indicate darker patches in the water, and then once that's dry, I glaze it again with the Australian turquoise over the whole water body, carefully going around the bush. This defines the horizon line and deepens the watercolour. To add texture to the sand, I've covered up the quokka and the water with scrap bits of paper and then sprayed some dark brown paint by flicking my brush hairs with my thumb. For the final touches, I add white gel pen highlights to the eyes and a little hint to the nostrils, as well as the lighter hairs at the chin, chest and neck. Looking back now, I wonder if I should have used watercolour pencils for these details, but I think I'll just try that at a different time. Remember to subscribe to see more videos, including maybe that one at Rottnest Island in the future. I uploaded photos, then used Canva to create these 2 Christmas card designs. Which one's your favourite? Give this video a like and let me know in the comments below. And remember to spread some holiday cheer and share these happy quokkas with your friends. See you in the next video.